Don't make my mistake. I'm a seasoned gardener, and I'm about to confess the 9 perennials I deeply regret planting. And if you have any of these in your garden right now, you're in for a world of pain. 25 years of gardening experience, and these 9 plants nearly destroyed my love for this hobby. They looked beautiful in the catalog. They promised years of easy maintenance and stunning blooms. They lied. But here's what's really shocking. These aren't obscure plants that only beginners fall for. These are popular perennials that garden centers push on everyone. Plants that win awards. Plants that so-called experts recommend. I planted them thinking I was making smart choices. Instead, I created 9 different nightmares that took over my garden, killed my other plants, and turned my peaceful sanctuary into a constant battle zone. The worst part? I kept some of these disasters for years, thinking I could control them, thinking I could make them work. I was wrong, dead wrong. But here's the twist. For every plant that betrayed me, I discovered a better alternative that gives you everything you wanted without the heartache. Plants that actually deliver on their promises. These 9 mistakes cost me thousands of dollars, countless hours, and nearly made me quit gardening forever. So here's the question every gardener needs to ask. What if the plants you're planning to buy are about to ruin your garden? The first crack in my confidence came with a plant that wore a crown of gold in every catalog, Rudbeckia American Gold Rush. It was sold as bulletproof, a perennial so tough it won All-America selections in 2020 and the Perennial Plant of the Year in 2023. But by the second summer, more than half of them were dead in my Illinois beds. University extension trials confirmed it. 56% mortality, blackened crowns, stems collapsing by July. I watched $4,800 vanish on removal and soil fumigation in a single border. Elaine McIntyre, a plant pathologist, called it classic fusarium crown rot. She was right. The glossy marketing promised disease resistance. My garden got black ooze and a pollinator desert. Then came the hostas, some in substance, paraded as a shade garden hero, stamped with the Royal Horticultural Society's Award of Garden Merit. I planted them in early spring, just as the guide said. By midsummer, the leaves turned a sickly yellow, waxy, and limp. Chlorosis, the experts called it. Rachel Heller from Missouri State explained how heavy clay and alkaline soil starved the roots. In Detroit, one gardener spent $2,450 just to amend the soil after root rot set in. I lost more than foliage. My joy in that bed withered too, replaced by hours of failed rescue attempts. The promise was bold color and zero maintenance. The reality? A constant fight against frost heave, nutrient stress, and the creeping sense that I had been sold a lie. Every season, trust eroded a little more, and so did my bank account. Miscanthus Morning Light was sold as the answer to every tired boarder. A grass so elegant and well-behaved, the catalogs promised you could plant it anywhere and forget about it. Instead, I watched a single clump turn my property into a seed bomb. North Carolina State's extension trials found that a mature miscanthus can release over 10,000 seeds in a single season. That's not a typo, 10,000. Dr. George Miller, who has spent years tracking invasive grasses, calls it a perfect storm for accidental colonization. I learned the hard way. After a September storm, seeds scattered into a city park across the street. Within weeks, new seedlings sprouted everywhere, between playground mulch, in the cracks of the sidewalk, even in the drainage ditch. The county sent a violation notice and a $2,000 bill for emergency eradication. The fine stung, but the real cost was knowing my mistake had spilled beyond my own fence, turning a private regret into a public nuisance. The so-called seed-free guarantee from the nursery meant nothing in the face of real-world biology. When a plant's promise is based on hope instead of data, the entire neighborhood pays the price. Crabapple Purple Prince was supposed to be a safe bet, a compact, disease-free showpiece, or so the catalogs insisted. What they left out was the ticking time bomb hiding in its branches: cedar apple rust. In Iowa, extension trials clocked a 45% infection rate for this so-called ornamental. I watched as orange fungal blisters crept across the leaves, then leapt to my neighbor's prized apple tree. The next spring, both yards were dotted with swollen galls and dying shoots. The fallout didn't stop at the fence line. In Rochester, a single infected crabapple led to a $3,800 bill for removal and stump grinding, money gone in a single phone call to the arborist. But the real cost came when my neighbor threatened legal action over cross-contamination. That's the ugly truth. One bad planting choice can sour an entire block, pit neighbor against neighbor, and drag everyone into a mess of blame and invoices. Liam O'Connor from the University of Illinois called it pathogen ping pong. One infected tree can keep the cycle going for years. I lost the tree, the trust of the folks next door, and any illusion that plant labels tell the full story. When a garden mistake turns contagious, the price is more than just money. It's your peace of mind and the goodwill that makes gardening worth it. Daylily. Stella d'Oro arrived with the promise of endless gold. Catalogs called it bulletproof, a workhorse for any sunny border. What they left out was the ROT lurking beneath that cheerful bloom. The first summer in Kansas, the stems collapsed in a soggy heap, wiped out by botrytis cinerea. Dr. Nancy Patel, who tracks perennial disease outbreaks, calls it the most persistent fungal threat in Midwestern beds. Her trial plots saw a 40% infection rate after just one humid June. I watched $1,200 disappear on dead plants and replacement costs. But the fallout didn't stop at my fence. When Stella d'Oro failed, I reached for Phlox paniculata David, the so-called pollinator magnet. In Minnesota, each plant can throw up to 1,200 seeds in a single season. Eric Jensen, a horticulturist, warned me, skip one round of deadheading and you'll find seedlings everywhere, lawn, cracks, even the vegetable patch. What started as a fix for one problem became a new infestation, and the cost of removal ballooned from a personal loss to $4,800 headache for the whole block. These weren't just my mistakes anymore. The garden's troubles spilled into the neighborhood, turning a private regret into a community blight. Buttelja Black Knight was supposed to be a pollinator's paradise, but I learned the hard way that its roots don't stop for anything, not even PVC. In Savannah, a single shrub's roots punch through an underground irrigation pipe after a summer storm. The repair bill was $8,900. Dr. Megan Ortiz, a plant ecologist, calls it rhizome force, roots that don't just grow, they invade, pushing aside soil, stone, and plastic alike. The catalogs never mention that the same roots that anchor a butterfly bush can turn a backyard into a construction zone. Heuchera plum pudding brought a different kind of trouble. Its glossy leaves promised year-round color, but the first rainy spring in Salt Lake City left the crowns swollen and lifted, breaking the clean line of the border. That's when the HOA sent a violation notice for aesthetic disruption, a fines of $2,500 for failing to keep the landscape uniform. Alan Kim, a landscape architect, explains that some Heuchera crowns expand so aggressively they heave mulch, stone, even edging. I lost not just money, but control over my own garden. The stakes were no longer just personal. One plant's hidden habits can trigger a legal and financial mess that no catalog warning prepares you for. Lily of the Valley, those innocent white bells, nearly ended my gardening days for good. I planted them for nostalgia, chasing the scent of childhood, not realizing I'd set a trap right outside my own door. By the third spring, the rhizomes had crept 12 feet, tunneling under borders, surfacing in the middle of beds I thought were safe. One afternoon, my daughter brushed her hand through the patch. By dinner, a red rash had bloomed across her wrist. The pediatrician's warning rang in my ears. Even a half gram of leaf can trigger a child's heart to slow, all thanks to cardiac glycosides lurking in every part of the plant. Kelly Funk, who's seen more garden poisonings than she cares to count, calls lily of the valley a silent threat, beautiful, deadly, and almost impossible to eradicate. States from Connecticut to Oregon have flagged it on invasive species lists, but the catalogs still promise carefree ground cover. I learned the hard way. Some mistakes threaten more than your garden. They put your family at risk. Even now, garden centers push these perennials as safe bets, while the real cost is hidden in hours lost, plants smothered, and joy drained from the soil. Regret isn't a beginner's burden. It's a risk for all of us. Choose boldly, but question every promise. Your garden deserves nothing less.